Hey, how you doing? My name is Chris. Welcome to my shop. I've got something a little different for you today. I have a friend of mine who works in his own business. He owns his own business and he builds furniture for a living. And his business is based on production, the amount that he can get out the door in a single day. And he and I got to talking about finishes. He mentioned to me that he uses a water-based finish on everything that he does because the drying time, it's essential for him to use it because he's told me he doesn't have time to sit around and wait for an oil-based finish to dry. He's got stuff to do. He needs to get things out the door, so he doesn't have time to sit around and wait for it. And so he started asking me about how we could speed up the process of an oil-based finish because he actually prefers an oil-based look as opposed to a water-based look. And I said, you know what? I don't know. Let's see what we can do, and I'll let you know. So I figured I'd take you along with me. I'm just gonna do a little bit of an experiment here to see how much we can cut an oil-based finish using a solvent such as mineral spirits, and see if we can decrease the drying time for an oil-based finish. Now, in so saying that, I know that by adding more mineral spirits or any other solvent for that matter, you're actually going to be decreasing the amount of finish that is actually in the product that you'll be using. While it may dry faster, there'll be less of that product in the finish. But if it gets it down to a point where it's almost manageable for him, I think he might be interested in it. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be checking out the drying time on a couple oil-based urethane finishes just to see if we can get the drying time to speed up just a little bit. Doing that next. All right, this is the product that my friend currently uses. This is very similar, if not the exact same thing that he currently uses. And it's a water-based, it's a polyacrylic. And if you look at the back of this, the drying time on this, they say before you can do your first sanding over on the coat is about 2 hours. I'm going to see what we can increase the drying time for these two finishes. This is Minwax's polyurethane. Notice it says fast drying, which would tend you to, at least tends me to believe that there's already some sort of a solvent in here, so this has already been diluted, so it will dry a little faster. This is General Finishes Armor Seal. It's an oil and urethane top coat as well, but the differences here are the drying time on this, according to Minwax, is 3 to 4 hours before you can do the first light sanding, and on this one it's closer to 6 to 8 hours. And like I said, I believe that's because the fast drying polyurethane already has a solvent in it, so that's what they're doing to increase the drying time. But we're going to see if we can decrease that even more, and then we'll see if we can decrease this by at least half. And I'll be doing that by mixing a 50-50 blend of mineral spirits to each one. So I'll do 50% mineral spirits and 50% polyurethane and or armor seal for each batch. And I'm looking at I'm only going to do a little bit of each just because there's no point in doing a whole lot of it. I'll do about 2 ounces of mineral spirits, and then I'll go ahead and add 2 ounces of either the polyurethane or the armor seal to it. Mix that solution so we get 4 ounces total of solution. We're going to apply that to a piece of wood and see how long it takes to dry. Okay, I've got one canister labeled for the polyurethane, and then there's another one here for the armor seal. Let's go ahead and mix up 2 ounces of mineral spirits, and then I'll throw in 2 ounces of polyurethane to bring it up to 4. We'll pour that into this cup, mix it up, and we'll do the same with the armor seal. So there we go. That's the armor seal. Okay, clean out that right there. That 4. That in there. When you got good, sir. Stick the armor seal. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to apply that to 2 pieces of equal 2x4, and then we're going to judge the drying time. All right, here's our 2 test pieces. Let me grab a pen real quick. We can label these. This will be the poly. We'll go ahead and write that there. Poly, and then this will be the armor seal. We'll just write arm. And we'll be doing this portion of these boards. 2 separate brushes. Let's do the poly first. And I'm going to get a time when I've done finished. So I'll focus the camera on the clock when we're done, and we'll come back when they're dry. Let's just give this a quick spread. Nice and thick. Let's look in. A lot of spirits in there, so it shouldn't have too much problem. All right, and now we got our seal. All right, let me excuse the jittery camera, but let me turn it around to the clock for you. And the clock is currently reading, if I can bring that in for you, Where are we at? There we go. It looks like we are at 43 after the hour of 10. So we'll come back when these are dry to the touch and we'll find out how long it took for each one. Okay, it looks like we're coming up on 17 minutes afterwards, and something interesting has happened. Let me show you. I don't know if you can tell this or not, but you can. I don't know if you can see it. The polyurethane and that mineral oil mixture is still, you can see to the touch, is wet, and it's not it's not a glossy finish. It's a semi-gloss. You can see it's still on my finger. But if you look at the armor seal, it's almost cured. I mean, not cured. It is almost finished to the touch, and that surprises me because the polyurethane, I assumed because it was a fast-drying polyurethane, already had a solvent in it. Now, I thought that was going to dry a lot faster than this, but the armor seal looks like it's penetrated already and is on the verge of drying. So we'll come back to it, and when this is actually ready to be sanded, we'll check the time on that. Okay, we're coming up on about 34 minutes after we applied the finish. So let me turn the camera around and we'll see how things look. Okay, I don't know if you can tell on this camera or not, or if you can tell by the lighting, but the polyurethane is still a little, you can see it's still wet. The armor seal, though, looks like it's dry. Let me have a, it's pretty dry. The polyurethane, not so much. But at 34, excuse me, at about 34 minutes after we did the 50-50 mixture of armor seal and mineral spirits, that's ready for an initial sanding. So we got 34 minutes on the armor seal. We'll wait to see on the polyurethane. Okay, we're coming up on just about 55 minutes into this. So let's take a look and see where we're at. Okay, the armor seal is definitely dry, and the polyurethane is pretty dry now too. I wouldn't say that it's ready for sanding quite yet. I think we probably, if we gave it another 5 minutes, so if we just go with an hour on the 50-50 mix of polyurethane and mineral spirits, I think within an hour you could do your initial sanding. We already have the time for this. But one thing is obvious, neither of these are a semi-gloss finish yet. This would be an initial sanding, and a second application would need to be applied. So I tell you what I'll do. Let me go ahead and do an initial sanding on these. I'm going to wait 5 more minutes for the poly. I'll do an initial sanding, and we'll do another coat, and we'll see how long that second coat actually takes to take, and find out if we get a semi-gloss finish or not, because right now we're doing pretty good. If you remember correctly, the polyurethane, I believe on the back of the can, when you read it, it said the drying time was 3 to 4 hours. And right now it looks like that's been cut down to a single hour. And the armor seal, when you read the drying time on this, was somewhere between 6 and 8 hours, I believe. Yeah, between 6 and 8. And we already know that we beat the crap out of that. So I tell you what, let's wait 5 minutes, give this initial sanding. We'll do a second coat, and then we'll judge the second coat on top of this and see if we get a finish that resembles a semi-gloss finish, or if indeed a third coat would be needed. We'll find out. Okay, I've done the initial sanding on this with 220, and I just finished putting the second coat on. We're at 12 o'clock right now. So we're going to let this sit, and we'll find out how long this takes to dry to the touch, and maybe perhaps give it a third coat. I should let you know that I didn't prepare this wood initially as far as sanding goes, so I'm not expecting a killer finish here. I'm just looking at drying times and seeing how this thing will work out. So let's let this sit, and we'll come back to it and check the time and find out what the drying time is for the second coat. Okay, we're about 30 minutes into the second coat on this. Let's turn around and have a look. Okay, I've changed the angle on the camera here to hopefully let you see this. See if we're getting any kind of sheen yet. And if you remember, the first time around, the armor seal dried after about 34 minutes, and it's close to being somewhat dry now, but it's going to take more than 34 minutes, I can tell you that. And the polyurethane looks like it's going to take longer still, but you know what? We're getting at least a sheen off the polyurethane on the second coat, whereas the armor seal is really still dull. This is going to require at least 3, possibly even 4 coats in order to get that up to a semi-gloss finish. So let's let that sit. We'll wait and come back and do a second sanding, and then probably apply a third coat for both. Okay, we're about 50 minutes into the second coat, and let me have you take a look. Okay, whereas the armor seal was dry and just about ready to sand after the first application, it is still a little damp. and the polyurethane is absolutely still a little damp. So this is obviously going to take a little bit longer than the first application. So we'll go ahead and let that run, and as soon as I'm ready to go sand the armor seal, I'll let you know what the time is on that, and then I'm sure we're going to have to wait even longer for the polyurethane. We're about an hour into this now, and this armor seal is dry, and we could do a second sanding on it now. So the second coat time for armor seal is going to be 1 hour. The polyurethane is still a little damp, so I'm guessing we probably got another 15-20 minutes on that. But you'll notice that the polyurethane, if you can see that on the camera, at least has a little bit of a sheen to it, whereas the armor seal is still very dull. So we're obviously going to do a third coat on that and a third coat on this as well, but we'll wait for the drying time on the polyurethane and find out what that is. We're about an hour and a half into the second coat, so let's take a look at what we got. All right, a half an hour ago, the armor seal was ready. The polyurethane is now ready as well, so we're an hour and a half into that. So total so far, we're an hour and a half into the armor seal, and we're about 2.5 hours into the polyurethane. So I think we can make some fair assumptions here and call this experiment now. Okay, the results I think are pretty obvious. Yes, you can speed up the drying time on an oil-based finish, but the amount of coats that it's going to take to get the coverage you require and the length of time in between each of those coats, if time is of the essence for you, stick with the polyacrylic. You can get the oil-based finish to dry faster than what the can says it will, but the number of coats you need to put on it in order to achieve the finish that you need, I don't think you're not going to beat that process. So if speed is of concern to you, stick with the water-based polyurethane or the water-based finish, because it will dry faster and it will give you the final look that you're going for. The oil-based, while I'm sure we could get there, we're probably looking at another 2, possibly even 3 more coats on this. And so as far as time savings, not going to work. Hey, you never know until you try. And my friend had a question, wanted to know. I gave it a shot for you, buddy. I don't think you're going to be able to use an oil-based finish and be as productive as you currently are with the water-based, so stick with that. I know this video probably wasn't the most interesting for a lot of people, but I wanted to throw it out there just in case anybody out there was curious and wanted to see what was going on with it. We knew what the results are now. I kind of assumed I knew what the results were going into it, but until you try it, you never know. So there you go. Stick with the water base if you want to get things dry in a hurry. The oil base is going to take you some time, so if you're not in a hurry, go ahead and feel free to use that, all right? You guys take care. Get out in your shops, go make that first cut, and get something done. I'll talk to you later.